to hear from you guys. Pete, Paul, Joaquin, Owen, Frankenberry, Artraf. All right. Well, appreciate you guys all coming in. I'm Cameron Kirkconnell, and hopefully everybody's keeping their sanity. It's been a couple weeks now since everybody's kind of been locked inside, and depending on where you are in the world, some people aren't able to even get out and get in the water. So feel free, you guys. Hopefully this gives everybody a little bit of a relief, to talk about some stuff, maybe learn something. And, there's no one way to spearfish and to freedive. So all your guys' input is really appreciated. We've always said that you can learn something from someone that has been diving their whole lives and someone that it's their first day. You just have to always be open to having, a different, way of doing things, and being able to take those ideas and adapt them for different situations is what makes for a really well-rounded diver. Tonight the topic is basically being a better free diver, but not just for free diving, for spearfishing, which is really important to me. I've never been one to just go and free dive. Like, I've always had a purpose when I'm doing it, whether it's spearfishing or catching lobsters or catching stone crabs. So it's been interesting in the last 6 or 8 years now that these freediving classes have come up. They've come from pure freediving people, competition freedivers, and really successful, very intelligent people that have put together these classes to help the rest of us learn how to freedive properly. Most of you guys, like myself, just started out diving the way their parents did or their friends did, and just kind of like jumping straight into it. And I want to say that we were probably 13 or 14 down in the Cayman Islands as kids, diving 60, 70, 80 foot with no training whatsoever. And we had just watched our dads do it, and our dads would dive down with spear guns that had no float line, no reels, nothing, and dive down 70, 80 feet, shoot a hogfish, and just skull drag it to the surface. And we had no idea what blackout was. We'd heard about people passing out, but luckily, we never experienced anything like that when we were kids. And we're lucky to have made it to where we are today. So tonight, what I've done is I sent a couple of videos to one of the really good freedive instructors who works with us and actually does a lot of training for our clients, and asked him to be brutally honest and really critique my diving. He's been on trips with me, and he's one of the best teachers out there. And to go from here to here, you really need a second opinion and someone outside the box to look at the way you're diving. And him and I are really good together because we butt heads constantly. I am a pure spear fisherman through and through, but in order to spearfish, I have to be a good free diver. And I would never say that I've been a phenomenal free diver. I think that I'm kind of middle of the road as far as like the guys that do a lot of it. But my combination of hunting skill and being able to free dive pretty good, makes a difference. And finding that happy medium is really important. I've never been one to hunt past 100 foot a lot. I've found that the majority of the time I can get most of the fish that I need a lot shallower, but I have the ability to do it. I just have never really pushed it. I've shot, I can probably count on both hands how many fish over 100 foot I shoot each year. And the deepest I've ever shot a fish is 119, and that was the biggest black grouper I ever shot, which we talked about, I think, with GR, and that was like 119 or something. But that being said, I can hold my breath, for ages. I can do 2.5, 3 minute dives when I'm really relaxed and taking time, but most of the time I'm following clients with the camera, pointing out fish, swimming against the current, holding the clients in current so they can rest, and making difficult dives with like barely any warm-up, because I'm just watching them trying to be ready to dive at all times while positioning them and getting everything right. So my dives are usually pretty darn difficult, and without warning, I'm just like, okay, he should be breathed up by now, and watching people, you can tell their body movement, okay, they're getting ready to go, and then I just go and go. So we'll talk about different breathing techniques. We're going to talk a lot about body positioning, and one of the things I want you guys to take away from this when I went into my first freedive class with Martin Stepanek, I was looking for one thing that was going to blow my mind and make me dive 50 feet deeper. And starting out with all the basics and everything in the class, I was like, I already know all this stuff. You know, I know blah, 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 blah. What really changed my mind about the whole freedive class and taking a proper class was seeing Martin dive the very first time in the open water. And his surface entry, when he entered, was unlike anything I'd ever seen. It was like a perfect knife. And right then he had my attention. It was the smoothest entry with the least amount of effort I've ever seen. And from there, he had my attention. And he made a very good point there, and we tell all of our students this. There's no one thing that's going to blow your mind in freediving. It's a number of little things that are going to give you 2 seconds here, 3 seconds here, 5 feet here, a couple seconds here, and all that added up is going to give you the tools that you need to have a better, longer breath hold. So one of the, a good example of my freediving when it was actually kind of raw was, if you've been on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, is the red grouper lobster video where I grab a lobster after pulling a red grouper out of a hole. And this is one of the ones that he's going to go through tonight and basically tear me apart for being a poor diver. And hopefully we're all able to learn from this. But we're going to look at this real quick, and then he's going to kind of break it down. It's interesting watching this now that I know how to dive properly, how sloppy this is, yet still able to make, you know, a pretty good, darn good dive. Generally, when you're making your dive, the first 33 feet, you're doing big, wide, powerful kicks, and then you're narrowing your kicks once you get past neutral buoyancy, and finally stopping kicking and drifting down for, this is the last, 15, 18 feet. Obviously, I know we all care a lot about spearfishing, but we're going to skip this part where I grab the lobster and grouper and watch the kicks like on the way up. And Errol made a good point on this when we were talking about this today, is on the way up, my body positioning is pretty good, but right as I get to the surface, one of the first things I do is start talking. And that's a big no-no. Like, you can't just do part of this. You have to go through everything, from prepping for the dive, breathing up for the dive, the actual dive, and the recovery from the dive to do this all proper. So now I'm going to see if I can get Errol on here. And like I said, if you guys have questions while we're going through this, please ask. Errol asked to join here, buddy. There he is. Let's see if it'll come on. You ready, Egg Roll? So let's see if Errol will come on here. Wow, sorry, lots of comments, guys. Sorry, I missed those because I was blabbering on. And a lot of you guys that are on here have actually been taught by Errol, including myself. He teaches a lot of our classes for the instructors. Oh,
going with the silver.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, I can hear you perfect.
Nice. Sorry, guys. Hopefully the audio was okay leading up to this. How was it? So just blabbering on about nothing?
No, it's good. It's good. Good intro, man. Awesome.
So like I said, Errol's he lives about 45 minutes away from me down here, and we joke around a lot, because Errol is so strict with clients and students and everyone about the rules for freediving and like the classes and everything, and it's a good eye opener for me, because my focus is always spearfishing, and it's a very good reminder and a good lesson. So Errol, tell me, how bad do I suck at spearfishing? And then,
well, if I compare it to Aaron, really, really bad, and maybe Blake too.
So what? In all honesty, what is it that, from a freedive instructor's standpoint, what is it that annoys you the most, and that you would pick apart the most about the way that I dive?
Okay, so actually, your diving is actually phenomenal in the sense that for what you need to do, you're extremely good at it, and especially when it comes to the hunt, you know where to position yourself, you know where to move on the reef. So I mean, you're a hunter at heart. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
You're an ass kisser. Come on.
Now
Give me the good stuff.
I'm done with the accolades. If there's one thing I would have to get on you about, it's when you hit that surface, just containing that excitement for the client or for yourself, and just getting your breaths in.
Right. And why is that? Why is that so important?
Okay, so it's important because anytime you're talking, the air's going out. Now, mind you, let's say you had a 1.5-minute, 2-minute dive, and you were maybe fighting some current, or even before the dive, you were fighting some current, just trying to keep that guy in place. And now your job is to film him, right? So you go down and you're filming. And again, these clients are paying good money so that you can get the shot. You hit the surface and you're just so stoked for them on that group or whatever it is. And you're failing to do your most basic thing that you need to do is breathe,
right.
You know?
But why is that? What's happening to your body that you need to breathe straight away instead of talking?
Okay,
I'm trying to make you concise because you can be long-winded.
I'm like unicorns and butterflies. So what happens is when you're diving, you're not breathing. You're consuming oxygen. Your body's metabolizing. You're increasing your CO2. When you hit the surface, not only do you have a bunch of CO2 and very low oxygen, but you've also lost a bunch of what we call partial pressure. So therefore, a lot of it is going to leave your brain. Okay, you're just not going to have that partial pressure pushing the oxygen up. So when you hit the surface, that first breath you take in, okay, it needs to go into your mouth, down into your lungs, into your bloodstream, making its way to the heart, and eventually being pumped to the brain.
Right.
That takes time to do. So if you don't get that initial breath in, you're never going to get what you need to go to the brain to keep you conscious.
What does that first breath need to look like?
Okay. It depends how deep you're diving, but for
75 feet. Most of the stuff is 75 to 80 foot.
75 feet, I would, obviously that would be a level 2 person. We call it a hook breath. So basically think about like a Air Force pilot, and when they're going into G's before they had the G suits, what would happen is as they would go into those G's, all the blood would drain away from their brain and they would pass out. So what we're basically doing is we're creating a G suit within our lungs. So we hold the pressure and we raise the blood pressure and it shoots straight to our brain.
You're tightening your chest as you take that breath.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're sitting on the can and trying to push one out. It's kind of like that same feeling.
And so as soon as you hit the surface, you're blowing out your air, those last couple feet, hit the surface.
And then release. Another one. Another one. Okay, so now we got the blood pressure and we got the oxygen going.
How many are you supposed to do? 1, 2, 2.5, 3, 4.
I would go with 3 on those hard hook ones, and then we do what are called 3 cleansing breaths, and that's just to get that CO2 and that oxygen, the CO2 out, and that new oxygen back in.
And then you give an okay. So why are we doing this?
Okay, so the okay side, we're looking for motor skills. So the fact that you can actually connect your fingers is incredible. It takes all kinds of
It's because this one's still intact. This one barely doesn't reach anymore.
That one, but
unfortunate.
I think if there's a will, there's a way. You know, maybe not. I don't know. But what happens is we have motor skills. So if you don't have oxygen, you're not going to be able to function. You're not going to be able to do this. So we're looking for motor skills. Are you able to connect the dots?
And you and I both seen it. Like when people, you know, part of the thing with hypoxia, which is low levels of oxygen, is all these different things happen to your body. And one of the first things to go is your motor skills. So people will try to do this and they'll be like, they'll have like the claw out there and they will not be able to do it. So
they'll sputter.
Like we said the other night, when you're watching people freediving, you're watching for something different, you know, and obviously this is just a check at the end of it. If they can't do that, man, you need to have your hands on them. And already one of the key things with all of this is you need to be arm's reach away so that if something happens, you're on them straight away.
Yeah, most
Your
definitely.
typing is crazy loud too. So
mine?
Yeah. Is that you typing?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I can hear it. Right.
So that's recovering from the breaths or whatever. One of the things that I noticed in this video, let me see if I can play it again, was at the beginning of the dive, and this is before I'd ever had a free dive class. Well, here's one, and you said this earlier. This is a good example. Oh, it's too big. Let me see if I can move my thing.
If they saw it in your story, they know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't know if they did, but taking your snorkel out, and that's one of the things that I tried to add today. What is the reasoning behind taking your snorkel out, and when do you do that?
Okay, so we always recommend the snorkel is for surface breathing. Okay, it's just to breathe on the surface. That's all it is. The whole reason we take it out is because when you dive down and you have a snorkel in your mouth, it fills up with water. So now you have an open airway with potential water getting in. Now there's all kinds of physiological things like our larynx closes off, which is called the laryngospasm.
Your vocal cords for you retards. It's your vocal cords.
The vocal cords will close off. Okay, but would you rather have two barriers between the water in your airway or one barrier? Me personally, I'd like to have two. So therefore, you take that out and your lips create a natural seal.
So basically, you're giving yourself a direct hole for water to go in your lungs.
100%. And don't forget, a lot of people have trouble equalizing, especially the guys out in California with cold water, man. You need every little tip and piece of help you can get. So if you get that snorkel out and then you relax those jaw muscles and just kind of relax your neck and head, those eustachian tubes will have a better chance of keeping nice and flexible and nice and open so you can equalize in that cold water.
Right. So I'm going to play that video again here, and you can kind of pick it apart as you go. But
you're talking about the grouper lobster one?
Yeah. Okay. And again, what you guys can't see in this, and this is the biggest mistake that I see with people, and this is how people get themselves in real danger, is people go and do these classes, and if you haven't taken a free dive class, please do. It is a game changer. It really opened your eyes to what you're missing out on, how you're diving, and it's going to make you so much better. So one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they'll go and do this class in perfect conditions with, very experienced people watching them, and they'll dive 70 foot. And then in the next class, they'll dive 130 foot. And they'll go out after this on a spearfishing day, and they'll think, okay, well, I went to 130 foot. And when I ask people, how deep are you, or how deep of a diver are you, they always tell me their max, which is not the way it is.
Yeah. Like kind of our rule of thumb is like 2/3, whatever your max is,
Right. So stay within your limits, but it's every dive is different. Like if you're working against the current, you're not going to be able to make your normal dive that you've been, making. Like slow down, catch your breath, and just feel your body out every single time. You're going to screw yourself and get yourself in major, trouble if you try to bust out your deepest dive every dive. And it screws you for hunting too, because you're never going to have a chance to recover throughout the day if you can't dive, quickly and recover quickly. And we've talked about that in the past, and it's that's CO2 tolerance, I guess, that we have that's pretty good, that allows me to recover so fast.
Well, you're able to. That has like CO2 is just something you have to get rid of, but you want to have a high tolerance. Most people shorten their dives because they have a terrible tolerance to CO2. So there's a lot of other factors, but we'll just go with that for right now.
So my normal diving, I'm swimming against the current on the surface. Like I'm not holding onto a buoy, I'm not relaxing, but I always say that I'm kicking at a speed that I can maintain, that I can still dive the depth of the water that I need to. So if the current is too strong to maintain like that, it's not going to be a good dive. So what we'll do is we'll set up a drift, and this is stuff that you're not going to hear in a freediving class. That's why having you on here is so important. And you're kicking slow. And in this video, you can see that I'm doing exactly that. I'm kicking on the surface here to maintain, and then I'm making my dive.
Let's just hold on 1 second, Cam. I just want to comment on this really quick. Can you pause it?
I hope so.
Okay, so remember this. You're going to notice Cameron, he's not going to be diving 100% vertical because of the current. So that's something huge that you need to take into account when you're spearfishing. Is you don't have these ideal conditions. It's very, very rare to have ideal conditions, especially if you're spearing off of Florida. We always have some sort of current. All right.
Okay. Let's see how this goes. And I think you told me, like, if you guys haven't watched this video, watch it and copy it and send it to Richie Zacher. He's never seen this, and he really needs to see this.
All right. So, okay, is this the
This is the first dive, which your comment on this earlier was how narrow most spear fishermen's kicks are
Yeah.
at the
So
beginning.
yeah, big time. So the reason why spear fishermen narrow their kicks is because they're normally overweighted. Now, I noticed in this video you are not overweighted. You are actually pretty good weight. But what happens is because they're overweighted, they just start sinking basically from the beginning. So they're not used to actually ever using their fins. So they'll have $500 carbon fins for
Right.
absolutely no reason. It's just doing zero for them.
And here's another good point as we're talking about this. So when we're filming, like when Chad and I dive together, when you and I dive together, and we're getting ready to dive, and we'll tell clients this as well. We do this to each other when we have 30 seconds left in our breathe up. So we don't have to lift our heads out of the water. We don't have to change what we're doing. And it's like your signal basically in Sambas. We just do a 5. And that means we've got 30 seconds before we're going to dive, so people know. And you'll see like in this part of the video here, shoot, this is the second dive, like to go back down and get this fish that I've already shot. And the guy that's with me, he said that this was like the hardest dive of his life, and I hadn't even really thought about it because he's got the camera, and
So look how relaxed Cam is. He's kind of just setting up, just kind of breathing up and just keeping super relaxed. Now he pushes himself just a little forward. Okay?
which I still do, and that's
Right. Now what go back up a little bit. I want you to look at what he did with his arms, okay? So a pure free diver would have done this. I'm sorry, his hands like this would have gone invert, arms would have ended up like this and done a nice perfect breaststroke. As you can see, Cam's kind of staggered. And the reason why he's staggered is because he's used to holding a pole spear or a spear gun.
True.
And he has this habit of, because that's what I do. I hold a pole spear here in my gun and I just do the one arm breaststroke, or I just let my gun down and I'll do a double.
That's a really good point, Errol.
You can see he kind of staggered it, and that's pretty typical spear fisherman behavior.
And that's a great point. And I probably halfway through that sweep remembered that I didn't have something in my hands. So the other thing to notice about this that I do incorrectly is this position with my arms right here is the way your arms should be before your dive. But I have a tendency to do a sweep forward to get a little bit of forward momentum and then kind of dive down into a hole. And I always tell people, I imagine like I'm going down into a hula hoop, like down into a hole. And then now you guys can kind of watch the rest of this dive here.
So watch his left leg. His left leg is the only one, or right leg's the only one that's going to come up. And boom, he starts kicking. Now he's got really awesome kicks here. They're wide. They could be a little wider. I'm not going to lie. They could be a little wider, but he's just chilling, cruising. You can see he's going at a little bit of an angle just because of the current, and he kind of stops kicking really soon.
Positioning myself.
This is the greatest part right here. Stop for a second, Cam. Okay, what happened? That's all right. Just before there, as he stopped kicking. Now remember, when you stop kicking, he's letting gravity and the lack of buoyancy do all the work. So he's conserving energy. So he's going to have more bottom time. Now, in an ideal freediving world, he would have been 100% vertical, but he doesn't have that luxury because he's dealing with current.
Yeah, I'm trying to get back up on the spot.
Right. He's trying to come back up on the spot. And there he goes. He goes to grab the grouper that he shot earlier. And then are you grabbing your grouper?
Yeah, I'm pulling him out of the hole.
Okay. And then he's going to pull it out and then, because the video slipped for me. And he's going to grab that nice whatever pound lobster and off to the surface. Here's another thing that could probably be done is you saw in the beginning, he just did some little baby kicks and now he started going a lot wider with his kicks. Okay.
And I'm dragging up a lot of stuff because the grouper's got his mouth open, creating drag. I've got the spear, I've got the gun, and I've got a lobster. And I don't know if you guys know this, but in this video, this is a spoiler alert. So this lobster
was staged.
No, it was not staged, but a lobster actually has eggs. So I didn't even notice until I grabbed it because it was in all that dirt that it had eggs. But for the video, I brought it all the way up and then I let him go on the surface. So
Nice.
Kicks and everything are good coming up.
So we had a question come in about what about head position. So head position is something we talk about in level 2. You know, as much as we'd like to, for the free divers out there, as much as we'd like to keep a neutral head position, the reason being we don't want to put any tension on the trachea, so we get a squeeze, which is basically bleeding. You can kind of, you know, up to around 66 feet, you have a little bit of leeway. Past 66 feet, now you're starting to run difficulty, and you may run into a squeeze. So,
and that's very person dependent. So I find that pure freedivers, I think, are more prone to squeezing than we are, because we're naturally hunting. Like I always tell people, start looking earlier. And you made a good point earlier. Like watch my head position as I'm going down. So I'm already looking straight down, but that's what I've been doing for, 30 years or whatever at this point. So, I'm very, very flexible in that. I at 75, 80, 85 usually, I need to start tucking my chin, because it creates too much pressure on a semi-flexible space, which is your trachea, and it starts crushing, obviously. So I've got to bring my neck down and trim. But you see, I'm always looking. I'm always hunting. And
on a swivel.
On a swivel, like constantly looking around. And if you're not comfortable doing that, eventually you will, you will get more flexible. But if you feel pressure there, man, you need to tuck your chin like pretty quick. And that head position is going to streamline you. Yesterday, we were diving and it was deep. Towards the end of the day, I think my last 2 drops were 95 and 98. And as I got to the 60-foot mark, I tucked my chin here because I knew that I was going deep. And instead of looking around like this and scanning, what I do is a slow circle. So I just use one fin blade and barely turn it like that, and I do a slow spin as I'm going down. So I'm basically looking like this in a 360 and just spinning around, and that way I can look mid-water too. Twice while I was diving yesterday, I was halfway down, and the first time Chad starts screaming on the surface, so I stop and I start looking around. I look up and there's like a 60-something pound wahoo. So I start coming up after him. And the next time I was doing that same dive and I was deep, I was at like 60, and I tucked my chin and I started doing my 360 scan. And on the first 180, I saw him again. And I was like, oh. So I had to turn and go up at him and try to get him. So no matter how you're diving, you need to figure out how you can scan. And one of the biggest mistakes people make, again, is not looking. Like, you should be hunting from the time you get on the boat. Like, you're always looking for fish. Like, get in the water, you're looking for fish. You're loading your gun, you're looking for fish. You're chumming, you're looking for fish. You're breathing up, you're looking for fish, and so on and so on and so on. So as you're diving, keep your eyes out everywhere. Don't miss those midwater fish. God knows how many people like swim past so many good fish in midwater because they're like, I've got to go to 70 feet. I've got to get down there and lay on the bottom. And they're missing an African pompano or a tuna or something like that that's coming by. So just be aware of your surroundings. Yeah, did not get the wahoo yesterday. I never actually got a good shot. The other guy that was there had a shot, but we did not get him. We did. I'll show you what we did get yesterday. Here's what I shot at 95 yesterday. Ryan Myers called me out asking when the last time I shot a fish was. It was yesterday. That's what I'm most proud of yesterday, is that yellowtail. That was 24-inch yellowtail. And I actually hit it. I actually stoned him, which for somebody that doesn't spearfish as much as I would like to, most of the time I'm pointing them out. I was pretty stoked on. So actually I had that guy for lunch today, which was pretty phenomenal. So this is a good example. So I wanted to go deep yesterday and go see if I could get a mutton because I wasn't seeing him. And as I was going down spinning, I saw the yellowtails mid-water a pretty good ways away. So I was going down, spinning, and I saw him and I went whoop and flattened out like that and cruised, 50 feet horizontally instead of, coming down. So yes, Gabe, I did eat him. I had him for lunch today. I cut out all the bloodline. battered him, put a little Traeger fins and feather on him, and pan fried it. It was freaking epic. That's the other one we got to. I don't know why. I got to figure out how to do this better. But
Yeah, we got 1,000 questions. There's one. Do you ever have to video on breathe up? Yes, all the time.
What's the question?
Do you ever have do you ever have a video on breathe up? No.
Yeah, we do, but that's not something that is really great to teach over this.
Online. Yeah,
That is something you really need to sit down, because the breathing, like, you can really hurt yourself. You need to have a trained, free dive person there with you. I can tell you that what you hear in a class is extremely important, but you need to know your body. Like the timing, and Errol's probably pissed at me right now for saying this, but everybody's body is different, and I have this battle with the free dive people all the time. It's not XYZ. There's so many different factors that go into each breathe up in each person's body. For me, my huge breaths are really uncomfortable on the surface because I don't have the flexibility that Martin does or Errol does. So, like, if I do the, what are the water naps called?
Say that again?
What's the water napping called? Where you hold your breath in the pool?
Oh, the static apnea.
Statics. So the statics, like, I can't take a full breath because it's too uncomfortable. But Martin, like, he wakes up and he goes, and you just hear everything like popping because he's so flexible. So when I'm doing my breathe ups, I have to time it properly so that my last big breath, I'm ready to go right then,
Yeah. But actually, Cameron, you're not wrong, because if a freediving instructor, if they're good, they're going to be able to recognize all your individual needs. So, for example, like you said, you may not even be as flexible as Martin or XYZ. So a freedive instructor, he'll work within your abilities, and then he'll be able to tell you, all right, yeah, you're right. At this point in time, you don't need to do the full breath. You need to do this, but eventually you work on it, you'll get to the next level,
Right.
But I think what you said is very true. Every single person's individual, and that's why, for example, with the breathing, it's so difficult to teach online. And God bless all those people that have tried to do videos and stuff. It just doesn't
It's just
work.
dangerous,
There's
man.
so many little things.
It's too dangerous. Like, we're trying to teach as much as we can here with what we can do, honestly, legally, as well as in good conscience, to keep people from hurting themselves. I will say the number one rule, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the majority of people that die from blackouts die in their pool practicing by themselves. The pool is probably the most dangerous place. If you black out from freediving, it doesn't matter if you're in this deep of water or in 1,000 feet of water.
Yeah.
If you're on your own, nobody's coming to help you, and you're going to drown in that deep of water.
You'll drown in a coffee cup.
The number one rule is have a buddy. So there's a couple other questions here we're going to knock out, and I'm going to kick Errol off here eventually, and we're going to answer some other questions as well, and have like kind of an open mic. So I'll let you guys kind of jump on as with a little live video or whatever. So, oh gosh, how far back should we go here? Talk about the best method to properly equalize. Errol?
I think you're probably talking to the two worst people, because we can hands free.
Yeah.
Depends what kind of diving you're doing, but the easiest one is, I don't care what you do as long as you can clear your ears.
Agreed.
That's
I think the best advice.
Yeah. Having said that, I mean, there's many different equalization techniques, and over this chat, we're definitely not going to be able to hit any of them in any kind of good detail. Mm-hmm. So
hold your nose and blow against it.
Yeah. I mean, just as long as you can clear, it's fine. Take a class, and we'll teach you how to do it better.
So coming on that thing, one of the things that I tell people before trips, especially people that have not dove a lot, is for weeks, months, whatever, before you do a trip, I want you equalizing hundreds of times a day. And they're like, what? I'm like, sitting at your desk, I want you to equalize all day long. And when I was a kid, like, I remember like sitting in class and people, mostly girls, being like, what the fuck is this guy doing? And I was equalizing. And I wasn't doing it like that. I was doing it with my jaw. And I taught myself sitting in school, you know, how to do it, I guess, like when I was really young. But equalize. You need to do that just to practice and to get it, you know, going. H2O Noble Boy, what's your personal opinion on Carol Baskin's deep dive solo on today's YouTube video? He had Luke watching him. He's still live, I guess. David, can I eat before spearfishing, or does this make me less efficient while diving or driving? It definitely makes you less efficient. In recent months here, I've started doing the intermittent fasting, where basically from dinner you don't eat until like noon the next day. And while I'm diving now, I've been not eating the night before. And what's the best thing to eat the night before diving, Errol?
Nothing. Rum? No.
And this is a level 3 kind of class thing, but
the
it's like a certain kind of pasta and stuff.
Oh yeah, just high carbohydrates.
Right. So
a lot of carbs.
Lots of carbs, and then during the day, like don't eat breakfast or whatever. Drink a ton of water, and I find that my diving is best like all day long. If you take a break and eat, that's taking up room in your stomach. Same thing like in the morning when you wake up, some people have their cup of coffee, go to the bathroom, that opens up space. All that space is a good area for air to go, but also it's less that your body is doing. You know, it's not working to like process all that food and everything. So
Yeah,
every little bit helps.
So what happens? Your digestive system, it uses so much blood to help it digest. And if you dive on a semi-empty stomach or something that's comfortable, your blood is not concentrated to the digestive area. It's able to flow freely. Therefore, you're able to just carry better oxygen to do a dive.
Right.
So
Carrie, the guy Carrie Christian on here, guys, if you don't know him or you haven't heard me talk about him, he was like my diving hero when I was a kid. Like my dad and my uncle and like all of our extended family down in the Cayman Islands could all dive really good. But Carrie worked on the dive boats down there in Cayman Brac. And Carrie's the first person like I saw go to 100 foot. And I was like, holy cow. And I want to say he's like 6'5", you know, big Caymanian guy. And he would just bust out these crazy dives. And he's asking, what about packing? So packing is a technique used by these, you know, elite freedivers where after they've taken their giant breath, they're going, and I can't even do it right now because it's so uncomfortable, but they pack and they're just forcing as much air as they possibly can into their body. And I have my opinion on it, but I'm going to refer to Errol here.
Yeah. For recreational spearfishing, you should never be packing. I mean, there's just no reason for it. It's an advanced tool. You're putting yourself at a greater risk. It's something I wouldn't mess around with unless you had the proper education behind it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think
there's any need for it.
Yeah. Only time I've ever packed was dives like closer to, 200.
Yeah.
And that was just for practice.
I like even that time just now, that's probably the most stress on my trachea I've felt. So, and I think your heart rate probably goes up too, for the layman, which is all of us novices compared to like, the Truebridges and the Martins and the Kirks, like there's no reason for it. Take it easy. So ATOM 357, what is the best thing to practice to get better on the weekend? And this goes back to also Scotty asking how important is static apnea practicing in the pool. In my opinion, as a spear fisherman, and Errol and the Freedive guys are probably going to lynch me for this, I don't think it's that important. I would rather you go and swim. Like my training that I used to do when I worked on the ships, I'd be in like Diego Garcia or the Philippines or somewhere overseas or whatever. And when I had time off, instead of going to the bars, I'd get off the ship and I would swim as hard as I could for an hour on the surface, just as hard as I could. And then I would take my time and free dive on the way back, or I would do running and walking, holding my breath. But in all the years of doing that stuff, I found that the best thing was actually walking stairs. So the last 5 years that I worked as captain. So my office was on the, I guess it's like the 7th or 8th or 9th floor on the ship. And we'd have breaks throughout the day. So I would leave my office, hold my breath to the end of the hall, and then walk all the way down all 8 flights of stairs. Once at the bottom, I would take 15 seconds to breathe up, and I would hold my breath and walk as high up the stairs as I could at a comfortable pace. And when I had to let out my breath, I let out my breath, and I'd breathe relaxed all the way back up to the top. On the way back down, I'd breathe relaxed. When I got to the bottom, I'd shorten the turnaround time to 10 seconds, hold my breath again, and go up again. And I would do that for 30 minutes or an hour. And by the end of it, you'd be amazed at how high you can go. And it really teaches you how your body is functioning under pressure, because it's, in my opinion, it was the closest thing to a working dive, because you're using basically just your legs. You're thinking about relaxing every single muscle you possibly can in the rest of your body, because every muscle that you're using is burning oxygen that could be used for your legs, which is what you really need, as well as obviously your heart and lungs and brain. Another adaptation of that, and we're going to have Mark Healy on here eventually. When I was working on the ships, Mark and I always talked about different ways of training to stay in shape, and he would do a variation of that on the bike, and he would hold his breath on the bike, pedaling as hard as he could on a stationary bike, obviously not on the road, and it is so freaking hard. Like, again, I would suggest, if you guys are at home or whatever, pedal hard or whatever for 30 minutes, then slow down to a comfortable pace and try to hold your breath. And the first one is probably going to be 15 seconds. Relax for 30 seconds or 45 seconds, hold again, and then just vary your timing.
What I would, Cameron, I say this respectfully, I would highly not recommend the flight of stairs, because you pass out, and then, we got some hard-headed people out there.
I had a hard hat on, man. OSHA.
Now, I was about to say that sounds definitely up to OSHA standards. But yeah, I would not do the stair one, because I have heard about people that have done it and they passed out and they're like, bam, hit their head on the stair. If you want to do it in a padded room, by all means.
We got to get on this one. So Nathan, you got to take a class for sure. There's a lot more to it than what we can explain in a minute or less. His question is, so if you're kicking wider from the start of your free dive, doesn't that use up more energy? I'll let you explain that.
Does.
20 seconds are left.
It does, because but remember, when do you want to work the hardest? Do you want to work the hardest at the beginning of the dive when you're full of oxygen, or at the end of the dive when you have very little oxygen? Mm-hmm. So I'd rather burn in the beginning. So yeah, you're right. But again, you're fighting buoyancy. There's a force pushing up against you. You have to have those wide kicks. And if you look, you got the fin. If you're kicking properly, that blade is going to do all the work for you. Mm-hmm. That's why you spent $500 on carbons.
You spent the money on it, like use it.
I see so many guys, like, they have $500 fins and they just added 10 more pounds, and I'm just like, why'd you buy the fins? So yeah, I would definitely want to work harder at the beginning than at the end.
Yep. Julian, we'll get to your question on another one. I want to do more free dive stuff here. What's your best world record experience? We'll talk about that another time too, GMF. I really want to focus on, do you like Sputnik? I don't even know what that means. What is your favorite record that you hit? Blah, 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 blah. We'll do one on hunting techniques on another night. How long can you hold your breath on static, and how long can you hold it on a good dive?
20 seconds.
So generally they say that whatever you can do on a static, it's half of that is a working dive. Is that right?
Yeah, more or less. That rule of thumb.
Rule of thumb. So, and that's under perfect conditions. You're in good shape, like across the board, everything's good. So if you can hold your breath for 2 minutes in a static, which if every one of you guys can, like if you do a class, even the level 1, you're going to hold your breath for 3 minutes or 2.5, whatever it is. So if you can hold your breath for 3 minutes in a static, you should be able to do a 1.5 minute working dive. That means 45 seconds down, 45 seconds up. And if you've if you know the numbers behind this, you should be able to do a meter per second. If you're kicking properly, everything is ideal. So that means you're doing 3 feet per second. So you should be able to do a 45-meter dive under perfect conditions, which I can't do the math on that. But what is that, like 150?
150 basically.
150.
Yeah.
So that being said, that is perfect conditions. You're mentally sound. Like I had, you know, it's that's perfect conditions. Personally, I want to say that my longest was, I think it was over 5. I think it was like 5:45 or something. Most of my dives are like a minute 30 though. And if like that one day Errol and I were diving or whatever, Errol was giving me crap about bad technique, and I was like, give me your watch. And I did. I think my first drop was 235. My second one was like 258. I was like, I gave him a watch back. I was like, I dive fine.
Yeah.
Squeeze. We'll talk about that stuff. And you guys hit Errol up, you know, for this stuff. He's really good at answering his stuff. Compensation maneuver.
Equalization. He's probably Brazilian. Yeah, Brazilian or something.
So we use the hands free, which is.
Yeah, we open our eustachian tubes here.
You can see my throat moving, and I'm pushing my jaw out.
It sounds like a Rice Krispie treat in our ears.
Maybe yours. I don't know what the hell's going on with you.
I poured some cereal in my ears.
Wow. Guys, I wish we had hours and hours to do this. We've got so many questions here. And obviously, we want to help you guys out. So send us both messages. Errol's thing on there. Send a message on this, Errol, just so they can see your contact.
My handle. All right. It's going to be Clacky.
Thoughts on hunting, variable weight. What's your breathe up like? Enhance. It sounds like you're doing that. Enhance. Click, click, click. Enhance. When you're diving around, what depth can you stop kicking and start to glide down? Errol, you can answer that one. So when you're diving down, around what depth can you stop kicking and start gliding down?
All right, let me just, one little thing. So guys, I put up next to my handle, I put up a blog. Just type in freediving, what a drag, and it talks about being efficient, what you can work on. Mm-hmm. It's a blog on the FII site, and it's just a brief explanation of different things that can help you become a really good diver really quick. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Bryson, actually he was supposed to do a class. No, he did a class with me. Never mind. So usually we stop kicking at around 66 feet and start gliding down. I don't know if you were here for the video that Cameron showed when he got that grouper and lobster, but he basically stopped kicking around 60 feet and just kind of started gliding because he's nice and negative buoyant, and then he also has enough momentum to basically glide him to where he needs to go. Mm-hmm. So as you saw, he was using like zero energy to get down to the bottom finally, and then he started working again to get the grouper and then the lobster.
So here I'm going to ask a question. So what is the single best advice you ever got on freediving?
Single best advice. You're talking about technical?
And don't say cheesy safety stuff, which safety is the most important thing. But I know the way you're wired, like all we care about, and I mean, we joke about it, but all we care about is everybody comes home. What is the single best thing someone told you that made you a better freediver?
I have to say, I have to agree with you, Cameron, on this one. The water entry.
Yeah, me too, man. It blew my mind.
The water entry, it will determine. It's like, even me, this is, God only knows how many years into this as a professional. Mm-hmm. If I have my water entries are pretty damn good, but every now and then you'll catch a wave and whatever. If my water entry sucks, my dive will suck. Mm-hmm. If my water entry's good, my dive will be good, no matter how my breathe up was or anything. Breathe up, shreed up. It means zero when it comes to like true diving.
Right. I think about my entry every single time, and I still don't get my leg right. Like I felt it yesterday, like, because it's timing, waves, everything. Like it's so frustrating when you go to put your leg up and a wave slaps it slows you down. Like so many little tiny things make a difference, and people don't realize that. Like you're not diving in a perfect pond. It's not perfect conditions. Like, you know, you're diving. It's nuts. Okay, baby, going over now. What the heck? So, Joaquin, the question in there, Joaquin, is how much weight should you have? It depends. Every single person is different. We can kind of guess depending on what suit you have and what people's kind of body, makeup is. So you should generally, actually, this is pretty good because of the way this video is. So when people hop in the water and we do our open water thing, we tell them to take a breath without kicking. And they're going to kind of float up and down like this. And you should be between your chin and your collarbone, right there, without kicking vertically in the water like that on the surface. So every time you get in the water, and you should sit right about there. That's pretty. Yeah. That's actually pretty funny.
That's
how
pretty
that
good.
out.
Yeah, perfect water line. Yeah, right up there. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, Joaquin, man, we got to do a lot with you, buddy. You got to take class.
Take class with us.
Yeah, you got to take class.
I have a feeling you're somewhere down south, huh?
So proper water entry, egg roll.
So
and you can talk. I gotta go. I'm gonna go grab Pacifico.
Yeah, don't worry. So a water entry, what you want to do is, again, I don't know where you're from, but there's different philosophies on it. The way we teach it, we try to do a one-legged water entry unless there's a serious problem with the person's motor skills or their kinetic awareness, that they just don't have good body awareness. But what we like to do is, here are those two legs. We like to bend one leg. I'm sorry, I should be like this. Bend one leg and then shoot it up to the sky like that. And then that leg will basically have weight, and then the weight will push you down. So like, think of this, you got an accordion, 50 from the torso, 50 from the legs. The leg shoots up, 1,000, 1,000, and it slowly sinks you. Again, I would highly recommend an instructor. I have a lot of people that come do refreshers with me. I had one gentleman about a year ago came out and did a refresher, and he had done a class and stuff, but he just never had anything. So I coached him through like the water entry, and then he started getting better, and he's like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better.
I'd really like to do it too, honestly. So if anybody that's had the FII stuff wants to go and do refresher class, I mean,
it's worth it.
It's totally worth it. And I would love to have you guys come and do it. Chad or I or Errol or whatever can do it. And we're talking about doing, these camps where we get a lot of people there for a week or whatever. We go through a ton of stuff like this. And once the Bahamas opens back up and the U.S. opens back up and we're able to do some more traveling, you guys remind me and send me emails about this, and I'll try to set it up so that everybody can kind of get together and do this. And like I said, you're going to learn a lot from different people, and you're going to meet friends for life. The way that, our business is with spearfishing charters, we do 3 or more day trips with private groups. And we've done over the years a number of mixed groups where, hey, there's 4 spots going to Mexico or going to Fiji or whatever. Everybody call and join on to that. They're very difficult trips, and I love doing them at the same time, but unfortunately we don't have as much time to do those anymore. So I've always thought to do a camp like this so that we can get 20 or 30 or 40 people together in a bunch of different boats and a bunch of instructors and stuff and go through all kinds of crazy stuff. So if you guys are going to take anything away from this night, this is what I want to show you. And this is from Brad Thornborough. So this is a beer, and I don't have an opener. So you open a beer without an opener.
Pro right there. That's a seasoned pro right there.
Yeah, I probably did damage my roof. But anyways, so what other questions you guys have? How do you deal with contractions? That's one I wouldn't be able to answer. You got to answer that one.
So contractions during spearfishing, you should never have them. If you're having contractions during spearfishing, either you're too deep or you're too long, and you got to back it up. And we have to analyze what's going on with your body.
Do you still get them anymore?
I mean, do I get them? Yeah, way late, like in the 3+ minute range.
That's probably true. Long, super long dives.
For spearfishing, I mean, my spearfishing is between like 1:15 and like 1:45, maybe 2 minutes, and then I'm back to the surface. Mm-hmm. I always say I only need to be down as long as the fish is there.
Right.
If the fish is not there, there's no reason to be there.
Yeah, Gabrielle. Yes. And that's one of the reasons. His question is, can you feel a blackout coming? Have any of you experienced one? I have not experienced one. Errol just had one recently. Yes, if you know the signs and symptoms, sometimes you can, other times no. Because generally when you're pushing yourself to the point of a blackout, you're pretty distracted anyways, and you're probably thinking about too many other things, and it's going to sneak up on you and you're going to be out. So knowing your body and having the training leading up to that is crazy important. Contraction. Yeah. So contraction is, I'm just like flowing straight into this because I know I've only got about 4 minutes left. A contraction is when your body needs oxygen. It's basically being like, boom, punching you, be like, I need more air somewhere, you know?
Yeah, it's basically your diaphragm contracting. It's just telling you, hey, man, I got to breathe. And your diaphragm does this like kind of, it's a contraction. It basically spasms on you. So you need to start breathing. So that's what a contraction is. Now, some you can listen to and ignore, and some you have to pay attention to. So again, a class will help you work through all that.
Yep, Gabrielle, it's if you guys haven't seen the other, we've been doing these every night, every weeknight. I'm trying to do we're calling it the Cameron Kirkconnell Chronicles. It'll be live on here for, I guess, 24 hours, and then I'm putting them on YouTube. So if you go to my YouTube channel, which is in my bio, just subscribe, and as they come up, you can receive them there. But we've put them, I want to say, was it the Steve Bennett night that you were on there?
Yeah.
So I think it's at the beginning of the Steve Bennett night. So it's like spearing a friend to save his life or whatever. Errol talks about his blackout, I think. What is the best tip or technique for longer breath holds? Take a class.
Yeah.
What you do feel the urge to breathe on your way up?
Make it to the surface.
go get air. Relax, tuck your chin.
I mean, it's not abnormal to feel an
streamline.
Urge to breathe on your way up, you know. I mean, just get streamlined, you know, get in that position. There's a great video that the one you coming up in Ascension when you put the second shot in that tuna.
Yeah.
And you could see Cameron, he puts the
Which
shot.
Which is really
he's
rare
very
for me.
Excited. Yeah, and what happens is Cam goes straight to this. And I know when Cam's doing this means he's like having a little bit of a tougher dive, and he's just getting in that super streamline, and he's going to cut through the water and make it to the surface really easily.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just send a message to Errol or I. I mean, it's a much longer conversation, and we would love to answer every question here. And some of them are just really long-winded, so we want to, you know, give the audience and everybody here as much information as possible in a short period of time. We're going to have to do this again. You know, I think honestly every other week or so we'll probably have to do something like this, just honestly for an open mic, you know, for people to ask questions. Saltwater will, there's tons of different answers for that.
Yeah, let me just answer. So basically your head position, not only is it for the trachea, but also remember, if you do this, you're holding all kinds of tension in your neck and your back. So, that'll definitely affect your bottom time. You know, if you got your head all tensed up and jacked up like that, it'll definitely affect your bottom time.
Right. And guys, this is all going to cut off here in a minute and 45 seconds, and I'll come right back on and we'll answer questions for another, 10 minutes or so. But, I'm trying to keep these things to an hour because I know everybody's, it's late at night, and I thought about moving this to earlier, but, if you guys have any suggestions for topics, that are good topics or good people to talk to, I'm going to have a guest every night during the weekdays, Monday through Friday, at 9 o'clock every night. We'll come on, we'll talk and go through all this stuff for you guys to obviously stay entertained, but also to learn something. And it's been really fantastic to see the feedback and have people like Errol on. So we'll keep cranking with it. But this is all going to cut off in a minute. So if you guys want to come back on and ask questions, we'll be back on here in a minute. What is the best way not to get lightheaded before diving? It happens to me sometimes. You're breathing up wrong.
Yeah,
you need to change your breathe up. Who else should we interview, guys? I need some ideas. Kalani, get your dad on live. We've got a couple hunters this week. We've got Remy Warren, who he's a big game hunter out west. Really interesting guy. He's got a podcast and everything. I like talking to hunters, and I like taking hunters spearfishing because spearfishing is hunting underwater. Yet you got to combine it with a sport. We've got a girl down in the Keys that they sank their boat on the way to the Bahamas. Who else we got this week? Scott Eastwood's supposed to do it, but I think he's busy just being ridiculously good looking. So 5 seconds. We're going to come back on.
Get Kimmy on the show. Kimmy would be great.
For sure. Who's Valentine Thomas? All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Who's the first one back? Let's see if anybody comes back or everybody bailed. All right, hello. Crickets. Hey, Lucas, what's up, buddy? Fred, how's it going, buddy? You been able to dive at all, Fred? Now, I appreciate you guys hanging out. Lucas, you guys keeping your sanity? We got 2 people following. That's pretty awesome. It's my best number yet. While you guys are on here, obviously, ask specific questions. And if you guys want to ask a question now, just see the little 2 smiley face in the bottom right. Click on that, and just I'll answer it, and you guys get to ask live. We'll do like a little Q&A here for half hour or so. Questions? Frozen. I'm frozen? Hopefully not. Maybe I'm just not moving correctly. All right, so